Welcome to Coatings Decoded. On this episode, we're going to explore some critical decision-making processes that contractors go through when selecting products for collection systems and rehabilitation of those systems. We're lucky enough to have a very experienced contractor to join us. We're going to break down key factors influencing product selection, from product scope and performance expectations to the ease of application, vendor support, and cost considerations. What I'm really excited to do and bring to the show is we have, we'll get this one out of the way. I'm only somewhat excited about this. We have Vaughn Audet, Director of Epoxy Tech. Hey, Vaughn, how's it going?
Howdy. Glad to be here.
Not even going to touch the downplay at all. Vaughn is one of my favorite people to have on this thing, but the real guest of honor this week is Mr. Bill Freda. He is the General Manager and VP of Utility Services Group. That is plural services. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Utility Services Group and what it is you guys do?
Yeah, so we're a trenchless rehab and inspection company based in South Central PA, which is close to Harrisburg, and who isn't familiar with the Pennsylvania geographic areas, right along the Susquehanna River. Do a lot of inspection of sanitary and storm sewers throughout the state and the kind of the Mid-Atlantic region. Specialize in manhole rehabilitation, point repairs, SUE support. Basically anything trenchless, we support that industry and we do it. Been in business since 2005. So this is our August of this year will be our 20th anniversary. So we're looking forward to that.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really a testament to any kind of company performing a good service is survival, being around, and you would think that that's elementary, but it's not in this day and age.
No, it's not. And we're proud to say we're still family owned and operated. So we're going strong.
Very similar to Nemic and Epoxy Tech. Let's talk about that. You guys obviously are heavily involved here in the collection system side of things. There's a lot of things to take in mind when we're looking at project scope. So how do you assess that project scope, including like the manhole size, environment, logistics? What do those different factors play into how you determine the right product for rehabilitation?
Probably the number one thing is ask questions. Specifically in PA, we have probably 50% of our clients are working with engineers and 50% are working with themselves. So we like to ask a lot of questions to get the heart of what the problem is. Engineers and these treatment operators, they may have sat in a webinar last week and they heard about some product and they're like, oh, this is going to solve my problems. There is no one size fits all. There's no perfect product that's going to solve all the solutions. So we like to ask a lot of questions and figure out what their hot buttons are and see if we can help them and then kind of guide them in the direction. Because we have so many different tools at our disposal, we have lots of things that we can help them with, and we will also be the first one to tell them this isn't right. You got a bigger issue, or you got the products that we do and know aren't correct, and then try to get in touch with someone who maybe can help them out. But the number one thing is asking those questions, and then the number two thing is trying to figure out what kind of problems they're having, actually getting eyes on it, whether it's through CCTV video. More importantly, going and looking at the site. Access is key in rehab because you're dealing with built structures that a lot of times weren't built to ever be touched again. So a lot of engineers don't think about 50 years from now when you got to replace this or rehab it, like how are we going to get to it? We do a lot of collection stuff, and there's a lot of right of ways in Pennsylvania that are unmaintained and stuff. So it's a manhole that's in a residential neighborhood versus a manhole that's 3 miles up a creek bed is two totally different things. So we got to get eyes on it. That's kind of the main thing. So access is going to dictate a product, because some products you can't get to different areas. And then it's okay, is there another product that's better suited because the access and the equipment that we need can't get there.
Sure.
So
Bill, I love the guiding question approach, because Depending on the pain point of the utility, the owner. I mean, it could be corrosion, it could be infiltration. I is their main pain point. So that guiding question does allow you to address head on what is your most critical problem here that you're trying to resolve, and then that, based on that answer, is how you can determine the solution for it, the most appropriate solution. Because as a trenchless contractor, you've got many tools in your tool bag.
Yeah.
Right.
And we like to come at it with a partnership. Everything we do is partnership from top to bottom, from our consultants to our vendors and stuff like that. We like to make sure it's a partnership. So we extend that to our clients. Like, yeah, I might not get this job, but you're going to come with something else. I'm not going to just sell you so I get this job and get out. I want to solve your problem. And if showing up and I can just pump 3 gallons of grout in that hole and you don't have any other issues, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to say, well, you need to coat these manholes top to bottom and redo the flow channels and all that. It doesn't serve anyone any purpose to do that.
Sure. And, as you said, there is no one size fits all approach to these things. And, it's interesting to me that you even mentioned, is it several miles up a creek bed? Because these are things that you don't think about until you're actually there, presented with that challenge. It's one thing to look at something on by a description or a picture. Even, I'm house hunting right now, and the difference between looking at a house on the internet and going and walking and looking at it, you would think that would be pretty close, but it's not. So, I mean, just apply that, listeners, to manholes. They're not all the same size. They're not all easy to get to. There's a lot of different things to think about when you're accessing these systems. I mean, so as we get there, sometimes we come across some harsh conditions, and maybe the owner's looking for a little bit longer term protection. They're really interested in investing in either controlling their I&I situation or protection of that manhole for a long time. What key features are you looking for as a contractor in the product if that's your scenario?
So the main important thing is a product that's got a proven track record. I'm all about the new and cool thing, and I love to see what's that new on the market and what's coming out. But, trying to rehab someone's system that's old to begin with is not necessarily the place to experiment. So proven track record and the science behind the project, support from the people that are making it. If I ask Vaughn, Vaughn's our supplier, we spray Epoxy Tech. If I ask Vaughn, I know that he knows the answer to my question, or he's going to find there's someone in Epoxy Tech that has the knowledge to answer my question, because that's what's going to result in the best product overall. The other thing is the product itself. If you have really, really harsh attack of hydrogen sulfide, generally speaking, and this is very general, thicker is going to be better because you have less chance of pinholes or something developing in the future. And then having variability of being able to apply that product. Like, it's not like I don't have to have absolute perfect conditions. Like, it's got to be just like the lab, and it's got to be just like this to get it in, because we all know that when we get out in the field, we're going to have different conditions. One day it's going to be 40 degrees out, and by the middle of the day it might be 65, 70, and then in the summer the opposite, it might be 90 degrees during the day, and then it's going to drop down to 40 at night. So getting as much technical information about the product and having a support team that we can go to and say, okay, what's this going to do when we do X, Y, and Z? That's key for us.
Does training play into that as well? I mean, the technical resources are huge, but how does training play into that from a vendor support angle?
Very big. So one of the things that we're a big proponent of is having some type of, for a company to sell this stuff and to put it on, is to have a certified applicator process, whatever it be. So you can, we pretty strongly vetted Epoxy Tech and Atlantic Coating Consultants, who is our rep in the area, who we buy from. And vice versa, we expected them to vet us, because we don't want to hook our wagon to someone that we don't have comfort with, and vice versa, we wouldn't expect them to just sell to us. So having that, the ECAN process that Epoxy Tech developed is great, because all my guys get trained the exact same way. There's no I thought he said this, he thought he said that. Now it's all that's, and then if we ever need support, we're calling them, and they're calling saying, no, this is the right way to do, because every year, especially in PA, you get a slowdown in the winter. It's probably been a month or two since we sprayed a manhole. We're going to start back up here in another month, and all the things that we forgot about. We typically do a startup process where we'll get our reps to come in and watch and make sure we're doing everything correct. And if anything changed, and then we'll throw, we ran into this last year, support is huge for us. We don't claim to be the experts on the chemical composition. We claim to be the experts on taking that and putting it in the real world application. So we gotta marry the two, because we don't expect the chemists that are sitting in a lab formulating this stuff to understand all the things that go on behind the scenes just to get it on the walls of a manhole or a structure. And ultimately, it's for the client's protection. They know that they're not just getting a guy who bought a paint sprayer last week and is throwing it up on the walls and doesn't understand really what he's doing.
I mean, that's right, Bill. I mean, the reality is these technologies are ultra sophisticated. They do require specialty application equipment, and the contractors who buy into the epoxy technology need to be properly trained on how to operate and maintain this equipment. I mean, it's no easy feat, and when it's properly operated and maintained, it goes smoothly. It's with this proper training that really ensures ultimate success for a project.
Yeah, and the other part of that, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is the flexibility in the product itself. So again, generally speaking, if you have really bad conditions, you want to be able to put a thicker layer on. Well, if you can put a thicker layer on quicker, if I can only hang 80 mils at a time, and then I got to wait, and then I got to come back, and then I got to come back, and if I need to get up to something crazy like 500 mils, the product that can do that faster is going to be cheaper for everyone in the long run.
Well, yeah, and not to mention these type of technologies, if you can only build 80 mils, you usually have a really short defined recoat window. So you got to hit that window as well. So yeah, I hear what you're talking about. And could you, the cure times definitely help you with that application process, right? You're not going back as many times and those kind of things, but how else does the application efficiency just help you guys, whether it's from a spray quality standpoint or just some of the other things like DFTs that you mentioned?
Well, the number one cost in doing manhole rehab specifically is going to be labor. The material might be twice as much or half as much, depending on which product you're talking about. But if you can put it on quicker, ultimately it's going to be less expensive. The labor prices continue to escalate. What we paid guys 5 years ago is nowhere near what we pay guys now. Material prices do come up, but they tend to be a little more predictable year over year. They continue, whereas labor rates are just skyrocketing. Equipment is expensive to get in the game. To do it right, it's expensive, but that's a long-term investment. And once you buy it, you've kind of fixed that price going forward. It's always going to be there. You can get into the business side where initially maybe the equipment's expensive, but then over the life cycle of the equipment, it starts to get cheaper until it starts to get expensive again. But labor will always be more tomorrow than it is today. Equipment will be slightly more expensive tomorrow than it is today, and materials may or may not, depending on raw material costs going up and down. But it's I can't foresee any time in the near future that labor rates are going to stagnate or not. They're definitely not going to go down. So having the ability to put it on fast and right the first time is going to definitely, it's going to be good for everyone in the long run.
Well, let me just piggyback on that, Bill. I mean, labor rates are ever increasing, and there are emerging technologies now that for manhole rehabilitation where they're trying to be unmanned installations. And these new emerging, call them sexy technologies, where you don't need a man to enter it. You rotary spray, you do all these things. And unfortunately, in my experience, it's just no substitution for the quality that you get when you do it right. You actually have a man entry situation with a tried and true technology. These new sexy technologies, they're just that. They're not proven, they're not demonstrated, and ultimately the owners may not get the ultimate life cycle as a result of that. So you do have to account for the proper labor and need to get in there and with a tried and true technology to balance that out.
Yeah, and you can never substitute the you can do automated stuff, but inevitably something's not going to go right. And really the only way to identify that something didn't go right is if there's a person there that's going, this isn't going right. So, we're involved a lot in other forms of rehab that are more automated than manhole rehab, like manhole to manhole lining. I don't think there's anything on the market. There's lots of tools that you can buy that help you determine if something's right or not. But ultimately it comes down to a person saying this didn't go right. And then what do I do now? How do I correct moving forward, or how do I stop what I'm doing in the middle of a process and adjust? Spraying on this material, it comes back to Epoxy Tech's certified applicator program and training people how to do this correctly. Those guys know it's not going on right. And then they might put a pause on it. Something's not right here. It's not coming out of the gun correctly. Where if it's automated, like there's no way to know that until you're done. And God forbid you put it on and you find out it didn't go on correctly a year later. And now you got to come back and redo it. So you might be able to cut a guy out of a crew by automating some of it, but in the end, the crew size is what it needs to be. You got to get in here, you got to look, you got to prep the manhole. So even an automated system that installs it, even if you had something that could completely automated, you still have to prepare it. Nothing's going to go in there to prepare it because you got to get eyes on it. You got to see where the bad spots are. You got to fix this bad spots. There's a lot that goes into it that I can't foresee in the near future. That it will be automated. So the labor rates are going to keep going up and the cost of doing this will keep being expensive, but 90% of the time it is cheaper than replacing it.
Interesting. It always goes back to the fundamentals of repair.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to picture, you said the no automating of the like surface prep and things like that, the automating of the like bypass tube that you have to put in there sometimes while you're, some of the things that these guys do are pretty amazing. And to do it, you talk about application properties. I was thinking about this while you guys were talking about how, like, if you've sprayed a certain material over and over again, like, like how it should even sound, right? Like coming out of the pump. And that's magnified when you're down in an enclosed area because the sound's loud. I mean, you get used to it. A good qualified applicator is pulling the trigger, knows the product. The sound changes a little bit. They almost know something's off.
Well, and we have that all the time not even in the manhole, but on the truck side, on the rig side, like even on our vac trucks and stuff, our operators, you'll see them pause and they'll tilt their head kind of one way and they'll kind of stop what they're doing. And they're like, well, something doesn't sound right. And they're talking about the engine motor doesn't sound right, or the pump's not cycling properly, or something was supposed to kick on then and it didn't. And then they stop everything and they go find out that there's a bad switch or something's clogged or something like that. And it's like, if no one's listening to that stuff, then by the time it breaks, it's too late. Now you got a half coated manhole and everything's broken. And, there's a lot of moving parts to do this stuff properly that someone's got to be paying attention to.
Well, and is it more expensive to coat a manhole once or to coat it improperly, remove that coating, do it all over again and coat it a second time? Yeah. It
is tremendously, and it's not a one-to-one. A lot of times we come in and on the backside and we had this done a number of years ago and it's failing. To recoat something that had some type of product already in place, that might be twice as much as just a regular doing it up front, if not sometimes three, because the amount of prep work to make sure you get the proper adhesion, to remove anything that might be look okay right now, but is suspect. And redoing work is, I would say, 2 to 3 times more expensive than just doing it right the first time.
That adhesion is so key, especially in these linings like epoxy that we're talking about. The fact that the epoxy needs to have structural integrity is so huge when it comes to these things as well.
Yeah, and preparation, good preparation. You can have the best product in the world, and if your preparation is inadequate, it's not going to matter. Knowing what the proper preparation is for the proper techniques to get to the spray part, that's half the battle sometimes. These rigs spray material pretty fast, real easy to use. We probably spend at least twice as much time doing the preparation than we do actually putting the final product that the client sees in place.
Yeah, the old timers say something like the paint's not smart. Like my old tech service days, the old guys would be like, this paint's not smart. It just does what you tell it to, Doesn't have a mind of its own.
You're gonna pull the trigger, it's gonna come out the gun, it's gonna stick to something. How well it sticks to
USG is not alone. I mean, with Epoxy Tech having a 30-year, rich history in collection systems. Again, the technology is tried and true. So our approach has been consistent throughout the years, and I think that is key, is consistency, and our recommendation, our approach, how we're selling to the marketplace is really instrumental and important to these contractors. I mean, consistency and being there for them and supporting their business endeavors.
Yeah, they go about it. It's a partnership. It's not we're just selling you a product. We're developing a partnership that we can all stand behind.
Well, and I think if you've talked to Michael Caputi about manholes for longer than 2 minutes, you've understood that he's been in a few of them and encoded a few himself. So he has an understanding of not just like the product side, but what is going on, the struggles that you guys face from a contractor point of view as well.
Yeah. And you can tell that in the product that they developed, that it answered a lot of those problems that we'd had in the past about various things. It's like, okay, well, this checks all the boxes for what we're trying to accomplish here. And if you run into something new, because you will, because no 2 manholes are alike and no 2 situations are the same, you can call him or Vaughn and get an answer on guiding us through the project and coming up with a good solution.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you very much for your time today to come on and share your depth of knowledge when it comes to lining and encoding and dealing with these structures, whether it's the manholes themselves or the pipes that connect them. Vaughn, as always, it's good to see you guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Again, if you have any more questions or you'd like to find Bill and USG, you can find them at
www.usginc.net.
There you go. www.usginc.net. And remember, that's Utility Services
Group, not to be confused with the other USGs that are out there in the world.
All right. For Bill and Vaughn, I'm Jack, and I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.